I've been just absolutely desperate to record, but I've been so sick, been so ill. I got just absolutely laid out. And I've just been listening to myself and I'm like, God damn, girl, you just fucking go. You just go off. I love it, and I just like want to keep talking, I want to keep listening to myself, and like I'm just so unwell. All of my body rhythms are just so off. And talking like that takes so much precision in everything else I do that when things go off like this, everything has to stop and get reassessed and reworked, because like it can't happen. I have too many hobbies, I have too many special interests, I have too much love for everything I do. I haven't even been able to like rest properly the way I like really should be resting. I'm too aware of how meaningful this is to do. And I have like, I'm just like, can I please just record for like an hour today? I don't care how slow I have to go. I just need to talk, I just need to say something, you know, I don't even have to open my mouth that much. You know, I can whistle without moving my lips, it's a whole thing. I used to fuck with teachers all the time. Just like doing little whistles in class.
I just love having the little box on the screen.
And
I just
like,
can't get over that. That's
yeah.
I just make your brain happy.
It's one of my favorite stories I tell people.
So glad that I read.
I've just never not been an open book.
I decided to try to do this so solo. And worked on so many habits and routines.
Listening to the last episode, you know, I started off talking about how people are always suspicious of somebody who seems to be able to move between groups with ease.
It's bigger than I thought it was.
And I was like, yeah.
It's really good on the screen.
You know, just like kind of laughing, kind of incredulous at myself, like, okay. So you just decided that you're gonna treat like cultural groups, historical, like movements of people and groups as though they are social groups, and then self-categorize.
Oh god.
In empathy, like with empathy, in order to like pull out truths, like your idea of truths about our species and implications for our future.
It's like
under these conditions that you set like so explicitly. And then you're just gonna fucking say all that, like, just with the straightest face, and then be like, yeah, and then that's the story, and then that's what I said, and then just fucking hang up for the day.
Yeah, a great deal more singing. I was merely
Oh my god, and I just, like, I don't even have content scheduled for tomorrow. I'm like, I need to get up. I need to like visit the grocery store and like get a green juice or something, you know, like just it's just straight shot of oxygen. Just give me some plant matter. Oh, I want an all juice diet. Yeah, wow. What the
well, they went down to fundamentals and then mixed a
poor
few
bodily resources
fundamentals from different
are so misappropriately applied right now. I know it.
As a fan.
I'm so mad at myself, but like so.
I was saying earlier that I have a lot of Final Fantasy vibes. Like my face, like I can't get away from it. I just have a very strong jaw.
Glad to have this time. Oh my god, yeah. I've just been listening sporadically to the latest content releases and just thinking like, damn girl, you're a genius, like all over again, but like with a little bit more time to appreciate the whys and wherefores of that, whereas like last year I had that experience very briefly and then I just had to move on because there was just absolutely no time to get into like why this was genius. I knew like and I knew at the time that I could look back later and like tease out things that I thought about, you know, like at leisure. I can do that at leisure later if there's time, but right now like we gotta do this. But this year, you know, because I changed some of the processes and made certain things a little bit more flexible, I can kind of...
Okay, I love this. Who is this rehab? This is not the rehab I thought it was. And I was like, wow.
Oh, I don't know where I was going with that.
These things are too smart for me.
Oh, I can kind of take my time to appreciate, you know, the different content releases as they come out, for, you know, an evaluative way. Like, what was my intention here? Like, does the episode meet that intention? Does it hang together with my stated intentions across my various static content? You know, all these evaluative things that have to happen at a lot of different levels and consistently, and looking back and just continuing to try to model that reflexivity in real time. It's hard, and it's hard not to like overextend my personal energy and resources in this direction, which is why some of these modalities have changed and like gotten more dynamic. And that was always the plan. Like, I started out on hard mode with the most difficult format, with the most like energy sucking processes, with the intention of scaling back to something much more manageable. But I needed to know what like the outermost energy outpour was gonna be, because that is always gonna be the price for speed. And you need to know what you're gonna pay for speed. And that's always been the case, especially when it comes to like internet service providers or ISPs, who, by the way, pocketed so much fucking taxpayer dollars to upgrade the infrastructure of our, you know, national network, and it just never got done somehow. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, gosh darn. Yeah, but you do need to know, you know, what is going to be the cost of speed. And a lot of people don't actually know how to evaluate that these days, I'm realizing. I'm like, if I start out using a service, I try as hard as I can to put it through its paces, in the way that I would intend to use it, or that I would imagine it is meant to be used, one of the two. Um,
But it still
and
is.
then scale back my,
Where's the button? Oh, here it is.
yeah,
Okay.
my use of it. But
Yes.
I know
There we
that
go.
that process can be alarming to some.
She's so good though. And like, with a title like Saccharin, you have to. You just have to
And
give
I
it
was
enough
listening to me
space
earlier,
to.
and one of the things that I was just like, damn, you're so smart to me. You know, like, I love giving myself
So good. Okay.
praise, right? Like, I don't think a lot of us practice that. I don't think a lot of us feel we deserve that, which makes me sad. Um,
This is an art situation.
but if you have time, it's important to, like, while trying to be still do like a critical evaluation of your effect, right? Like intended purpose versus effect. Still trying to do
Okay.
that
Yeah. I
as
think we're
as
just
authentically
gonna
and
crack open the
accurately
rose to
as
see if
possible.
the market at the table
But
improves our
amidst all of that,
efficiency.
also doing some praise, like, and really work on the praise. And the better you
Experience.
can praise yourself, like with accuracy in a way that, you know, leaves you feeling good but also motivated to improve. Because that's really what praise is about. Praise is about, like, oh, keep doing that, right? Like, don't stop. Don't stop with that thing you're doing.
I have just been loving you
That's
recently.
praise. And we love praise. I love the praise movement in kink. That's been like hugely revitalized lately. I don't know if people know this or not. Like, I never know like what when I'm
So that
talking
it's
about
like, you know,
subcultures. I'm
in
like,
line.
is it okay to share this part of what's been going on lately? Because it really excites me, but I'm always, or, you know, it, yeah. But praise is so, if done wrong, it can be so much more damaging than just not saying anything. So you have to be like careful with praise. And the like main in my experience, the main feature of well-received praise
Found
is
you about to get
accuracy
toasted. Oh my god. Did you see
to
the brave little toaster?
self-perception of something that was in immediate and like shared understanding recently on display.
And straight if you want to get roasted.
So if you just comment really accurately on something that like you both can just observe in your shared experience of one another with,
Stein every
you know,
fucking
praise
time. That's right.
in whatever
It
words
really
that are
is.
yours.
I love Stein. He just
It
knows.
improves morale. It's so good for everybody. If I was gonna choose like one behavior to encourage in our species, it's like improving the praise, like self-praise and praise of one another. But yeah, I love the in the rambling one, I was like, damn, you're just tying all these themes together from the previous two episodes, just like neatly in ways I just had no idea. And you're like seeming, based on your word choice, you're seeming to like comment on it at the same time. Like the Domino's thing was just ridiculous. I was just, wow, okay. Oh, gosh. You know why I like Domino's, the brand? Not Domino's, the game. Yeah, it was their advertising campaign. I don't know, it was like 2008 or something. It was way back. It was ridiculous. I don't know why this stuck with me, but they just, like, they had shitty pizza. They did. Their pizza was, like, overpriced. And Little Caesars was just better. You know? It was just greasy cardboard, low grade ingredients, no seasoning, too much grease. Yeah, it just wasn't it. It didn't hang together very well. I mean, it was just like blah pizza. Like, it just wasn't any kind of pizza. I'm not like, yeah, I'm not describing it super. It was slightly better than the way I'm describing it, but it was just like, it was not impressive. And then they ran this advertising campaign that was like, you know what? We did a poll and we determined that people think that our stuff is underflavored, and so we just incorporated that feedback and started flavoring our shit. Here are some coupons. Give us another try, maybe. And then people did, and they had actually improved their recipe slightly, and it was worth like the new prices. And then those new prices just never changed. And so it was just like a big shout out. You right, fam, you know? And then, well, yeah, and we can argue on some pricing and other things. I know we're all very upset about the pepper and ranch costs across the union, but we do what we can with what we have. uh but yeah, that was some great stuff. Sometimes I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, what am I training for? Nobody asked for this. I didn't sign up to anything. I don't even associate with any groups. So what is this, you know? And I keep thinking about something somebody told me, how like Trump valued our citizenship at 5 mil. I was like, yeah, honestly, if it was fully exercised in the manner it's designed to be exercised, which would require a lot of like social safety nets right now, and yeah, and again, with these things are not outside of our capacity to implement whatsoever. The challenges we face are not logistics or resources. But I'm like, yeah, I mean, considering the privileges that I have and the, like, accessibility of so many different resources that I can tap as an American citizen, as, like, yeah, a white woman too. All of it. Even with the, horrific violation of my bodily autonomy and rights, like, consistently, and the psychological torture and rape and oppression and all of these things that are totally also always happening. It is the handmaid's tale. It is the power. But, outside of all that fun stuff, where's I going with that?
Chandler Layton again. Oh, you fucking kill it.
gosh, I hope everybody's okay. Oh goodness. Okay. Cannot be listening to Hanabi well. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, okay, so recording, I guess you're gonna get this tomorrow. Yeah, I have been continuing to kind of learn my own process in this recording dynamic and to try to increase the likelihood that I can be dynamic while recording, because as I have mentioned multiple times, I would love to interview people across a wide variety of cultures and places. So that does take a certain amount of versatility, and lately what I've been training has been travel versatility. It's been harder. It's so much harder. Staying in one place is a lot easier to do this. But yeah, so I have created, in anticipation of that, I have created a kind of blueprint for myself. And it looks like today's topic is economies. Barter, trade, and sell is what I wrote down. Now, I know I've mentioned multiple times how... Oh, I guess I just have to leave that piece of coffee cake there uneaten. I don't think so, right? This isn't... This isn't actual jail, right? Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. And then coffee. I didn't do this coffee cake right, but cake is cake, man. Truly, it's sweet bread. And with coffee, sweet bread and coffee, nothing better. Okay, yeah. Pretty huge topic. Economies. Barter, trade, sell. What's the meaning there? Oh, I've only got 7 more hours on these headphones. I better put them down. Best purchase of my life. I know I've said that so many times. Yeah. But wow, what a huge topic to be trying to cover. I think it's interesting as a topic because a huge portion of many of my other episodes has been devoted to the discussion of industry and how industry has shifted across time according to our tools, our technological tools. And I have been consistently encouraging listeners and thinkers in general to be considering this as a larger phenomenon, but also within the context of what can we, the observer, the people who are using these tools on the day-to-day basis, whatever those tools may be for you, whatever kind of machinery you work with on a day-to-day basis, however that looks, what can we be getting out of these things when we think about them and the way that they work, fundamental philosophies of why and how they work. That kind of stuff can be super important when it comes to understanding the sort of shifting winds of trade, as it were. but really understanding the way that technology and end user behavior at the end of the day really drives the economy in a way where like the end user behavior feels empowered, right? Like we really want empowered and intelligent participators in any economy. That's always going to be true. I don't know. There's a lot of people who have childhood stories about economies. The people who sold like the silly bands, or I knew one really enterprising young man in daycare way back who just like sold all sorts of random things from his own house. You know, like he had jacks and bouncing balls and just little gadgets, trinkets, fidget toys, anything, Pokemon cards, of course, but just like anything. Out of this drawer at daycare, and it was like his drawer, and the daycare people were kind of in on it because it provided such entertaining like diversion to everybody, and it would be like, okay, so and so store is open for the day, you know, and then you could go, and it was all like pennies, you know, 5 cents up to $1. There were limits being placed on us by the daycare people, but it was really just like a interesting experience to watch that economy emerge and then eventually end. You know, I can't remember whether he got the privilege taken away for some other behavior in the group, or if there was some just natural conclusion to that little economy. But I think everybody is familiar with barter, sell, and trade in interpersonal relating and as like a living experience, right? We all have some kind of conceptualization for what that looks like. And as I've mentioned many times, there's an intersectional perspective here that really needs to be elevated and perceived when it comes to barter, sale, trade economies. One of the biggest ones, one of the oldest ones, is going to be the trading of flesh. That's slavery, that's prostitution. And so these things have some intrinsic wisdom to give us as like a global community when it comes to considering economy and the rise and fall of our species and societies, or what we consider to be like culture and good taste and the highest forms of courtesy, I suppose. These things are intrinsically linked to our perception of economy and economies, both at our interpersonal levels and at the broader spheres, whether that is, you know, town, city, state, nation, globe, solar system. But globe-wise, you know, I think that there emergingly has been some interesting trends that imply we have some economies on this planet that have been unacknowledged or have been going unacknowledged. Energetic exchange is like the first one that I think of, like actual magic actually existing in the sense that humans are, you know, literal energy. We're electricity and water and a bunch of dirt. And so that needs to be understood and expressed. I think we all know that. Yeah, I know, like, should I link it back to Pokemon? Somebody the other day was like, it can all be linked to Pokemon with some red string, and I was like, okay, I think the Pokemon fandom community is a little overstrained right now. Like, the core fandom community they've got too much heat on them. I think we all need to lay off Pokemon as a means of reference for a minute. Oh my god. But yeah, I mean, this electricity thing, we've gotten pretty good with electricity, I would say. You know, like, look at our technology. And God, economies. I'm looking at my prompt and I'm like squinting at the amount of time that's elapsed on this recorder, and I'm like, I'm 10 minutes in to episode 10, economies, and I'm like already done talking about it. I'm like, I don't want to. I really don't want to. This is like diving deep into my very hard one, numerology, honestly. Like, if we're talking magic systems, this just, it goes against the grain to discuss economy in a way that's open and frank, with the intention of like educating. When I plan to release this content to a completely globally accessible audience, that's very like bold of me to do. And I really don't want to, I guess I should say there are waters I do want to ruffle and waters I don't want to ruffle when it comes to the economy, and hopefully everybody knows who that is and what that is at this point. I'm fucking tired of being direct in this moment about these topics. But when it comes to discussing economy, I'm looking at I was like, geopolitical nutshells for the peanut galleries. Like, okay, I love how clever you are with words, girl, but where are we going with this, you know? And sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, that's how I feel a lot of the time when creating this content, because what I'm doing is very intentional, very like vulnerable opening up of my in the moment stream of consciousness for the listener during like the corridor of time that I'm giving you. And the only reason I'm capable of doing it with so much precision and skill and accuracy is because of what mastery I have of the English language. And that's something that I have like worked really hard to guard without becoming like biased towards English in the like white America racist way. It's like really hard to do. And mostly I did it through treating it like coding. And just sorting it alphabetically. And that's what most ESL learners do. And I learned from them. So I'm not even original in that, you know? And that's always been my experience when working with and studying alongside people who are English as a second language speakers, is this somewhat dismissiveness for the rigidity with which English speakers stick to their lingual motifs. And there's just this knowledge, like it can be so much more fluid to communicate. It can be so much easier to communicate. And this awareness from the English second language speakers and their like complete awareness that you can, I said awareness twice, but this like introductory understanding to different ways of knowing, right? And of course I had formal introductory to that by like taking epistemology classes, because of course I did. But this just observation of mostly Spanish speakers, right? Like people who spoke Spanish as their first language were my first introduction to English as second language speakers, and later some people from like Europe and Britain and even Canada. But this like initial experience of people who spoke my native language secondly was primarily Spanish speaking individuals, and like kids that I was learning alongside and studying alongside in the public school system. And that is like learning this perspective on language, and then also like never fully learning another language. Like I learned enough to get around in a lot of different languages, but I never learned enough to like speak really, really fluidly. I struggle with it all the time. I don't know why we're fucking talking about this when really we're supposed to be talking about the economy. But it is the way in which language dominates the construction of your worldview. Like it is almost impossible not
I
to
love probability fiascos,
have.
isn't it? Just one of those things.
I would say it is impossible not to have bias built into language and the way it constructs your worldview. So when we talk about economies and we talk about the different types of economies that exist in the world, I don't know how to talk about it from the perspective that's going to like make the most sense initially. The way that I actually want to talk about it is as though it is an environment, because I think that's more interesting and more useful. I keep thinking about, and I don't know how to bring this up without mentioning Terry Goodkind, so I'm sorry to everybody who either loves or hates the Sort of Truth series and who would prefer or not prefer for me to bring it up. But I'm the one who's tired of pop culture references. But yeah, this idea that like culture does or does not have an inherent right to exist, right? He posed this question in the series, and it's one, I've chewed on my whole life and just being like, oh, but I like it, like, okay, well then maybe you go one step further and say it might not have an inherent right to exist, but there are cultures we want to protect and preserve, and there are reasons for that. And so it's this like prompting you to articulate in more specificity what it is that you appreciate about culture. And I think that that's beautiful, and I don't know if that was intentional, but that's what I got out of it. And uh, I think about this all the time as it relates to like biochemistry, right? Like culture as in like a, a biological or an environmental type of culture, a microculture, microbiome, right? Yeah. So like I think about culture in this sense and in environmentalism, and then I'd apply that sort of grafted on to my perspective of economy, and that is, I guess, one of the best ways, barter, sell, trade, economies, yeah, to articulate this in a way that really makes sense is going to be beer, and it's going to be breweries, and it's going to be microbreweries versus like mega breweries. It's going to be, I think you can probably articulate everything that I would want to talk about through the culture of beer, right? Like the beer economy, the culture of the beer economy is a beautiful way to discuss economy at a global level. And there are economies like that, not just beer, obviously. I think discussing the cell phone economy could get people killed, right? So there are different economies with different levels of danger to different people in different parts of the world. And so when I'm like, oh, let's talk geopolitical nutshells for the peanut galleries, like, okay, that is pretty high key coming from me. How are we going to discuss economies, barter, sell, trade? When it under conditions of like extreme inequity, fascism, like blatant Nazism, like the rise of, oh my God, US imperialist white Christian nationalism. How many of these words, like, do we need for hate? I know, I'm speaking from my grief, but back to economies, like culture, like environments. Barter, sell, trade. Oh, right, yeah. I mean, so these winds are shifting, right? Like the winds of trade, they do be shifting as resources and resource hoarding gets to new levels. And one of the things that people who are in the like peon position or like the lower echelons of society rarely have time to like be considering on the day to day is the very like slow but important, or slow but deeply impactful pace of the way the like farthest reaching of the resource hoarding has gotten to, and people are considering who owns the moon and how are we deciding that sort of thing. It kind of elevates the tension in the room to a pretty unbearable degree for some people. So the decision making at that level has some pretty wide reaching, catastrophic impacts in the masses or the proletariat class. And I'm tired of talking around the word proletariat. It's been long enough, and the 3 countries with like the labor forces necessary to really move things one way or the other in the geopolitical sphere are all familiar with what proletariat means now. Like, and I'm not going to pretend that that's not true. Like, Russia, China, and American people all have some level of literacy or knowing. We can assume that based on where we are at. So when you talk about these really just gigantic bodies moving and the way that they crush people, we have to be very careful, and I'm really scared to talk about it. But I also think it's important, and that we do need to increase literacy and understanding of the way that like these massive groups of people can harness their collective power and how, right? There's an important potential step forward in our progress as a species here, but it has to be made at individual and collective levels that can't be forced or rushed. So what does the shifting of this resource focus mean for people living on Earth and really like in countries and generally subject to their laws, right? And like people who are feeling themselves kind of crushed beneath the weight of oppression in whatever format. Economic income and disparity is... Oh my god, this thing was way too hot. That scares me. I washed it once and now I think it gets overly hot on one side. Yeah. I knew I shouldn't wash it. It said it could be washed and I was like, I don't believe it. And I was right not to believe it, but it had been more than a year, so I was like, we should probably wash this. Where was I? Economies, barter, trade, sell. Yeah, so under conditions of like being able to pretty much 3D print most utility items that do not require a special flair, right? As well as like more mechanistic things, to be able to fabricate homes super cheaply, cities super cheaply, and like environmentally consciously, right? We can do really cool things now. We can do geothermal heating. We can do all sorts of differently applied technologies to both give like a completely neutral footprint, carbon footprint, and to also massively improve the comfort of like the inhabitants, and like it just across the board, the quality and standard of living could be so massively improved. We have the technology, we have the money, we have everything we need to do that. We really fucking do. We really, really do. But we have to like move collectively to accomplish those tasks, and that's what's harder, is getting people to work together and like getting people to feel confident that it's possible, helping them rise out of apathy, helping them become more hopeful. There are all these different aspects to what needs to be done in order to really kind of actualize these plans or these options for us as a species. Because of course there's always a positive option, but we tend, because like as a protective evolutionary trait. We tend to immediately notice the negative first, and it is a function of our environment oftentimes that we stop there and we just assume, oh, the negative is the thing, but there's always negative and a positive. There can't not be. And we're meant to notice the negative first because we're meant to like be prepared for danger, but that doesn't mean that's the only thing that exists. And so like to me, I think of that as just like the furthest extent of traumatized like soldiers. That's PTSD, that's shell shock, that is CPTSD, right? This is like the trauma of being a person overexposed to consistently only seeing the first most worst thing and having to act from there. That is the like danger, I guess, of being consistently exposed to only the negative, or only allowing yourself to think of the worst case scenarios, the worst things. There's always positive sides to things, and there's always actionable, like, good positive solutions to problems, but if nobody is like curiously investigating what those might be, then nothing will change. Somebody reminded me recently, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, and I was like, I know. Yeah, it was more like you can help the blind to see, but you can't. I don't know. You can cure the blind, but you can't make them see. Oh, that's worse. Yeah, it's good though. Yeah, I don't know. I just like, how do I talk about economy when we have just extreme resource hoarding and income inequality and just a need for like actual revolution, like actual collective retaking and reclaiming of spaces, occupation of our own places, going to parks, taking full advantage of your home and your space. Again, this always starts like in your place, inside of you, really. It starts in your heart. But
boxes. I love this streaming culture. It's just the like battle stations thing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say on economies, so I guess we'll stop there for the day. I'll just mash this with the one I took yesterday, and that'll give us a little extra time to put out the other two. This is an introductory episode 10, called Economies, Barter, Trade, Sell. Topic is geopolitical nutshells for the peanut galleries. So I think we accomplished that. This is a Texas Roadhouse situation. You can throw your peanut shells on the floor and the servers will sweep it up or not, depending on which Texas Roadhouse you happen to be at and how stringent their code inspectors are in the area. Sometimes the man is just a little too interfering and enjoys being a joy killer. Sometimes, however, the outlaws continue to evade capture. So with that, I will bid you adieu, and we will come back shortly for societies, policies, nouns, systems, and all that those things encompass. Until then, we will certainly see you soon in the kitchen.
Oh, it's so fun. Wow. Oh, so fun. So fun. Look at those teeth. I fucking love my teeth. But yeah. think I was being fake there, but maybe I just want to think that. I was not being fake there. How was our social media game today, fam? Did we kill it? You share some good memes? You check in on your friends? If so, you did a great job. Good job today, everybody. It's literally wasabi and cabbage. It's hard to mess up, you know?